Chelsea fans, welcome back to Talking Chelsea. Welcome back to your Chelsea news. The Jamie Gittens deal fell through before the deadline last night. Chelsea have announced which players are not going to the Club World Cup, and Kendry Paez and Petrovic's futures have been decided. Now, of course, I'll be giving my own thoughts and opinions on everything that's been reported, but more importantly, I want to know what you guys think down below in the comments.
And before we get into the video, make sure you leave a like and subscribe if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content. We're on the road to 10k by the end of 2025.
Now, kicking things off, I want to talk about the Jamie Gittens deal that fell through just before the deadline last night. Now, Chelsea had 3 bids rejected in the end and Chelsea decided to walk away, but I have the updated sort of timeline before the deal fell through, and I'd love to give my opinion and I'd love to know your guys' opinions down below. Reece Hawkins reported that Chelsea had submitted a new bid for Jamie Gittens to Dortmund around 50 million euros. Petrovic then reported that Borussia Dortmund have immediately rejected Chelsea's second offer of 50 million euros for Jamie Gittens. Petrovic then reported immediately after that Borussia Dortmund are now demanding Chelsea to pay a fee of 65 million euros, including bonuses for Jamie Gittens. Now, yesterday was a whirlwind 24 hours for Chelsea fans in terms of the Mike Maignan deal that fell through and then the Jamie Gittens deal that fell through. And there's a lot of varying opinions between Chelsea fans. You know, a lot of people had certain views on Mike Maignan, certain people had other views, and that's perfectly fine. That's why I love creating content, talking about this club and talking with you guys, is having that discussion in the comments. Whether we agree or not, I love the fact that we can talk about it. When it comes to the Jamie Gittens deal, I'm not that mad about it. I do feel like Chelsea are going to get this deal over the line across the summer, right? Jamie Gittens has since been announced as part of Dortmund's Club World Cup squad, which means, you know, even if we was to try and sign him, and we get it over the line, we won't really see him until the Premier League starts because we potentially have a very short pre-season depending on how far we go in the Club World Cup. And for me, the Mike Maignan deal, yeah, I had a bit of a head loss. I was rattled by it, and a lot of you guys are basically saying, you know, why are you crying over £4 million? We've got a better keeper, etc., etc. And look, I hear your opinions. I think they're totally valid. But with the Jamie Gittens deal, I feel the complete opposite. I feel like Chelsea really did the right move, where we went in, lowballed the offer, which I think is a bold move to do. Dortmund said no, they rejected it, fair enough. They said they wanted £42 million. We then go in around that price, and they go, actually, we want £46 million. We then go in at that price, and they reject it and go, actually, we want 65 million euros, which I don't know what that is in pounds, probably about just over 50 million pounds. And Chelsea went, do you know what? We're going to put a pin in this and we'll come back to it after the Club World Cup because we're not in a rush to get Gittens signed in for the Club World Cup. There was also a lot of reports that Jamie Gittens was not happy that this deal fell through. There was like videos of him speeding off from the training ground. He just wasn't very happy. Now, there's a lot of differences between the Mike Maignan deal and the Jamie Gittens deal, and we'll talk about that later in the video. Not to keep going on about it, but there's a lot of, in my opinion, valuable sort of reports and conversations to be had around that a little bit later. But regarding Jamie Gittens, I do feel like Chelsea did the right thing. I feel like Dortmund were trying to do as much as they could to extort as much money out of Chelsea as possible, and rather than us paying over the odds and going, do you know what, we just want to get it done over, you know, by a deadline so we could play Club World Cup, they had the thought process to go, do you know what? No, let's just not pay the inflated price because we want him in by the first window's deadline. The window reopens in 6 days. We'll continue this conversation over the summer and hopefully they can get something over the line. Gittens is a young player, very electric pace, high and wide winger, perfect for a Maresca system. I'm personally really excited if Chelsea sign him. I think he can do wonders in the Chelsea shirt. And again, he has lots of potential and he can go and develop. But even the player he is right now, I think when you look at his profile, when you look at all the sort of season he had at Dortmund, and the sort of counter-attacks he could be involved, the attacks in general, the goals he scores, the type of player he is, it's an exciting time for a Chelsea fan, and I'm glad that Chelsea dug their heels and went, look, man, you've asked for 3 different prices, we've come in at those 3 prices and you still want more. Nah, we're not going to get taken for mugs. We're going to put a pin in this and come back to it. So I'm not disappointed about this, if I'm being brutally honest. I feel like Chelsea made the right decision by not overpaying for someone like Gittens. I feel like these conversations can definitely be had after the Club World Cup, and I feel like they will be very different conversations because Chelsea can then go back and be like, look, you've given us 3 prices, we've come in at 3 prices, and now you're actually trying to get more out of us. What is it actually going to take to get this deal over the line? There's some other reports saying that basically Dortmund were willing to take the last bid, but they couldn't agree on a pay structure that they were happy with, which I'm assuming Dortmund want most of the money, or if not all of the money up front, and Chelsea probably wanted to split that over time, which again, that's just menial details really to get a deal signed, which is something that can be sorted out when there's a bit more of a time frame. But to be honest, like I said, I'm not overly mad that I'm actually quite happy that Chelsea walked away from it and didn't pay the Club World Cup tax that was being reported around the Mike Maignan deal, right? For different reasons. But I would love to know your thoughts. Are you happy or sad that we kind of missed out in this first window for Gittens? Do you feel like this deal is going to happen in the second window? Are you excited to see Jamie Gittens play for Chelsea, or would you think that Chelsea should just go for someone else completely in that position? Matt Law has reported that there are lots of questions on Kendry Paez. He will be joining Strasbourg on loan, whereas the other three incoming players, Delap, Sarr and Asugo, have been signed to go straight into Chelsea's first team squad. Now, this is another player that Chelsea fans are super excited to hear about. The hype around Kendry Paez has been phenomenal. Obviously, we signed Esteban, Willian and Paez in pretty much the same window, and we knew that they were coming to Chelsea this summer, right? And Kendry Paez has been in and around Cobham and Strasbourg for the last few months, adapting to European football, seeing how the culture is. He's also extremely young. He's just turned 18 years old. And a lot of fans were excited to see him play, whether it's the Club World Cup, whether it's in the Premier League. Will he stay at Chelsea? Will he get minutes throughout the season? And I've said this previously, I've said this in other videos, that I'm happy either way. If we keep Paez, I think it'd be fantastic to just watch. We're excited to see what he can do. But I'm also happy if he goes on loan for a season to develop, because he's extremely young and he does need to adapt to European football. And I feel like with the players that we've got coming in, like your Williams, like Esteban Williams, which to look like is going straight into the first team squad. You know, you've got Santos coming back, you've got Asugo, you've got, you know, all of these midfielders. It looks like our midfield is going to be stacked for next season. Would we see that much of Kendry Paez? I don't think we would. He would have been a rotation. Yeah, we're playing a lot of competitions. He would have got some rotation minutes. But would it be more beneficial to him to go to Strasbourg for a season so he can have a good run of games, really develop his game, and then come back to Chelsea next season when he has developed? Look at what that's done for Petrovic. Look at what it's done for Andre Santos. It's been an incredible season. Not saying that's going to happen every single time for every player that goes there, but it's a good example to extract data from and go, actually, it makes a lot more sense. A youngster at 18 years old, looking at our current midfield going into next season, is he going to develop under that in Chelsea, or is he actually going to have more of a chance at Strasbourg? The only thing that I'm a bit frustrated with is he's not going to the Club World Cup. He's been left out of the Club World Cup squad. We will talk about that more in depth a little bit later, but we'll talk about Kendry Paez specifically right now. He's not going to the Club World Cup. He's not in that squad. He'll be staying at Cobham or at Stamford Bridge and then going on loan to Strasbourg across the summer, which is quite frustrating, because even if we're not going to use him for the season, it would have been really nice to see him play in the Club World Cup, because essentially we want to take this competition seriously, or at least supposedly, but we can also use it as a bit of an extreme pre-season where we can rotate players, play different things. Enzo Maresca can have a little play around with the squad and the system and the different players he's got available, and really get a judge of where he's at right now, whether Maresca goes, actually, we need to keep him, he could be very vital this season, or he says, do you know what, yeah, it makes more sense to go and develop for a season, and we can revisit this next summer. So that's a bit frustrating, but at the same time, I'm not too mad at this. This makes a lot of sense. He's a young player that, you know, does need to develop. I would love to have seen him stay at Chelsea this season, but when you realistically look at it, I don't know how many minutes he would get, because he likes to play in that 10 role. And with Esteval, Cole Palmer, you know, and Andre Santos, who could play in that 10, and, you know, a lot of roles within the midfield and the rotation of players we've got, I just don't see him getting too many minutes, and I don't know if that's going to stump his development wherever he does go to Strasbourg. He can go and excel. But I'm very curious to know your thoughts about Kendry Paez. Are you disappointed that he's going on loan to Strasbourg? Are you frustrated he's not going to at least the Club World Cup to see what he can do in a Chelsea shirt? Or do you think this is a very good move from Chelsea? Matt Law has also reported an exclusive that goalkeeper Jordi Petrovic has not been included in Chelsea's Club World Cup squad. Chelsea have decided not to take any players who spent this season out on loan, other than Andre Santos, as they see it as the Club World Cup as a continuation of the 24-25 campaign. He goes on to clarify that Sterling, João Felix and Axel Disasi will not be going to the Club World Cup, and that includes Kendry Paez, who's also going on loan to Strasbourg. This is wild to me. It's been a very wild 24 hours, because I understand that you don't want to take the likes of Sterling, Felix, fair enough, and Axel Disasi, because we're looking to offload those players, right? You're not taking Petrovic to the Club World Cup. That's what baffles me the most, because a lot of the arguments in the comment sections across a lot of creators' videos yesterday when we missed out on the Maignan deal was, why is everyone crashing out about this? We've got Petrovic. Statistically, he's a better keeper. He's going to be Chelsea's #1 next season. And look, I even said in my video, you could be frustrated that we didn't get the Maignan deal, but still back Petrovic. I said I really want Petrovic to be number one, to have that chance. He's earned his right to fight for that position. And currently, right now, even if we didn't sign Maignan, he walks in as number one, in my opinion. He is the best keeper we have on the books. But Chelsea are not going to take him to the Club World Cup. Seems very baffling to me. It seems very, very baffling to me. A lot of the other players, yeah, it makes sense. If we're looking to offload them, you kind of keep them in one place. You don't want them involved in the Club World Cup because, again, you don't want that interfering with the squad that you're currently playing and the players that you're going to take into the next season. But not signing a player over £4 million, regardless of your views on that, when you look at it from the outside, because we have Georgi Petrovic as number one, okay, fair. But then hours later to announce that Petrovic isn't actually going to the Club World Cup because he was on loan last season. It's just baffling, but we have more reports. Matt Law continued to report that Petrovic's future is now in some doubt. It will end up being a player to decide whether he wants regular first-team football or not. And around the same time, Tom Boga and Ben Jacobs reported that Georgi Petrovic is expected to leave Chelsea this summer, but an exit isn't straightforward. Petrovic previously sold his image rights to another party, a situation that would likely need to be resolved before any potential transfer. What is this club doing? I'm going to try and stay as balanced and neutral as possible, like I always try to. There are certain topics that always get under my skin, like yesterday, and yeah, I did crash out about missing out on Mike Maignan for the sake of £4 million, because I just think he's a great goalkeeper, and yes, he's got 12 months left in his contract, and people made a very valid argument that we have Petrovic as our number one, and I totally back that, like I said. But now, what do we do? What do we do? Because yes, the window reopens in 6 days. I'm fully aware of that, and Chelsea will go back into the market. Well, let's hope they go back into the market to source and find a new goalkeeper. There's a little bit more reports on that specifically just after this in terms of goalkeepers, etc. But looking at it right now, last 24 hours, we miss out on the Maignan deal. We walk away from the Gittens deal. Fair enough. We then announced that Petrovic, well, in theory, that leaves Petrovic to come back off loan and be Chelsea's number one and fight, Sanchez and Jorgensen for that number one spot. Cool. Fans are excited to see Petrovic. He's had a hell of a development season out in Strasbourg. He looks unbelievable. Statistically, one of the best goalkeepers in the top 5 European leagues last year. Unreal. And then you announce you're not taking him to the Club World Cup. It's now coming out that he's expected to leave. He could decide whether to fight for first-team football or leave. And now it's saying that he's expected to go. Potentially a loan, potentially a permanent exit. Now, the lesser of two evils is he goes on loan again, rather than leaving permanently, because I feel like he's an incredible goalkeeper, and we've not even seen him. We saw him obviously under Poch, but we haven't seen this new developed version of Petrovic in a Maresca system, and we're all eager to see it, excited to see it. We want to see it, because as of right now, if Petrovic is sold, we are back to square one than what we had at the end of last season, which is Sanchez and Jorgensen. Now, look, Sanchez had a very good second half of the season. I've said this many times, credit where it is due. He has pulled off some great saves, made less mistakes. Great. If you look at his overall season, he had a very poor start. He had a little bit of a dip in form, as the whole team did. That month and a half we couldn't buy a win. And then he had a really strong finish to the end of the season. So overall, it's rather average. Jorgensen, fairly similar. Right, played different competitions, but similar sort of like bell curve, right? Good start, a bit of a dip in the middle, ended strong. So you're telling me the developed goalkeeper that had an outstanding season that can come back and put Chelsea fans at ease and also get them excited because they want to see Petrovic as Chelsea's number one, or at least fight for the spot, is now expected to leave this summer. It just baffles me. And this is all off the back of missing the Mike Maignan deal, which now looks a lot more like what were we playing at, pay the extra money to get him in, if the plan was already to sell Petrovic this summer, because I don't feel that there is any universe where we're actually genuinely content of going into next season with Champions League football with Sanchez and Jorgensen as our number 1 and 2. And if they are, I don't know what to tell you, because look, I back the team. I have faith in the players, but sometimes you have to be realistic. I personally don't think Sanchez is good enough to be Chelsea's number 1 long term, especially when you go for a window. In this window, we are specifically looking to improve in key areas. But there has been more reports because, like a lot of you said, and rightfully so, the window opens in 6 days' time, so we could just go back in for Mike Maignan. But there has been some more reports. Fabrizio Romano mentioned on the DAZN Sport, I think it was his podcast, he said, Chelsea are not so convinced to go for Mike Maignan later in the window, as they saw it as an opportunity for the Club World Cup. Unless Milan changes their assessment, I think the deal is off. Now, of course, we take it with a pinch of salt because we know how many briefings have been going around for the last 24 hours. But again, I like to react to headlines and have conversations with you guys down in the comments. So essentially, Chelsea saw it as an opportunity for the Club World Cup specifically. But then Chelsea also didn't want to pay Club World Cup tax to get the deal over the line. Doesn't make sense in my head anyway. Someone please make sense of it. And I know a lot of people have said, like, why would we pay the extra money? You know, he's got 12 months on his contract. He's an older keeper. The whole older keeper thing, I don't really buy. He's 29. That's very young for a keeper, in my opinion, because they can have very long careers compared to outfield players. But all right, you want to argue the 12 months on the contract, we can get him for free next year. Okay, cool, I appreciate that. But now we have the Petrovic news. It kind of looks a bit worse, doesn't it? Let's be real. If we're looking to lose the best keeper we have, stick with Sanchez and Jorgensen. We had the opportunity to sign someone like Mike Maignan who, you know, regardless of whether he's better statistically or eye test of Petrovic or not, right, depending on your views, I personally think that Maignan he's older, he's experienced, he's a leader, he's France's number one, he's the, you know, captain of that team, number one for AC Milan, won trophies, leader in the dressing room, that type of thing. You have the chance to buy him for the sake of 4 million, which in reality is not a lot of money, right? But when you put it into context, take a step back. If the plan was already to get rid of Petrovic, this isn't something they've made a snap decision on. This is something that they've already planned to do. Miss out on this deal, and then we get rid of Petrovic. And then it comes out that we're not that convinced on Mike Maignan. We only saw it as an opportunity for the Club World Cup. It just doesn't make sense to me. If you saw him as an opportunity as a Club World Cup but didn't want to play the Club World Cup tax, then something doesn't add up here. Now, of course, we could go back and renegotiate when the window reopens. Of course we can. But based off of this and what's being said, we're not that convinced on him. 86 Longo then reported in the next few hours, Allegri will have direct confrontation with Maignan after the negotiations with Chelsea fell through. Chelsea are considering taking Maignan next year on a free transfer. And do you know what? That's fair. If we had someone like Petrovic who was going to, you know, play and be the number one up until, you know, Maignan is free next season. And yes, you could have the talks in January and have like the pre-contract negotiations to then have it in the summer. That's great, but that means that we're planning to go through next season with Sanchez and Jorgensen as our 1 and 2. And I just don't know how comfortable I feel in that. I felt a lot more confident and comfortable knowing that Petrovic was going to come back and fight for his place and probably, let's be real, be Chelsea's number one. But now we're looking to offload him and then we miss out on the Maignan deal. We're willing to wait an extra year. We aren't going to be the only club that goes in for Maignan. But this is the thing, that we're not going to be the only club that goes in for him. There could be other clubs this summer that go in for him. I'm not saying he's the only goalkeeper. PSG have put Donnarumma on the market for 40 million euros. That's an option. So, like, you know, it seems like Chelsea are just happy to have missed out on Mike Maignan, walk away from the Gittens deal, which like I've said, I agree. I think we should have. Offload Petrovic, which just seems baffling to me, and then willing to wait an extra season for Mike Maignan and the opportunity potentially arising again, because we're not that convinced on him. And obviously we made them lowball offers, etc. It's just very baffling to me, and I'd love to know your thoughts and opinions down below about Petrovic leaving or being sold, whether it's loan or permanent. Now, and having that context, what you think of missing out on the Mike Maignan deal over such little money in the grand scheme of things. And then also that we're not that confident or not that convinced by him. We didn't want to play the Club World Cup tax, but we wanted him as an opportunity for the Club World Cup. I'm just very confused by it, and I would love to know your thoughts and opinions down below. Matt Law then reported that Maignan interest put the future of Sanchez in doubt, but the club believe he improved through the season and at least 9 points, which were crucial to Chelsea qualifying to the team, qualifying for the UCL. And this is the last thing we're going to end it on. So essentially, you know, I don't want to dwell on the whole Maignan deal too much, right? It is what it is. I just wanted to give it a bit of context, especially with the new news of Petrovic basically being kicked out the door or forced out at some point this summer, missing out on the Maignan deal, and then being happy with Sanchez and Jorgensen going forward. And like I said many times, credit to Sanchez, he did improve across that second half of the season, and he did make some incredible saves, important clean sheets. But this basically just says to me, and staples on, that these directors and Maresca and the coach and everything like that, despite Maresca coming out and saying he doesn't trust Sanchez anymore, they're happy with Sanchez and Jorgensen going in as the 1 and 2 next season. And I just personally don't think that's a strong enough 1 and 2. Yes, we had the third or fourth best defence in the league last season, but just imagine how much that can be improved upon if we then had a Petrovic coming in this season or a Maignan coming in this season. It would be such an improvement on Sanchez and Jorgensen, because regardless of your view on Sanchez, when you look at the facts, his distribution is woeful, shot stopping is great, and the mistakes have dried up, which is good. but his distribution's woeful. Maresca wants a goalkeeper that can play out from the back very well and has good distribution. He said that from day one. Jorgensen has better distribution, but he's a bit more prone to mistakes or not as confident in the sticks, and he is still young and learning. Sanchez is like 27 years old. They're expecting him to become. He has all the ingredients to be a world-class goalkeeper. I think they just said that they're waiting for his brain to catch up with his body or something along those lines. To match up the footballing IQ of his talent. And I'm just a bit baffled by it. And like I said, the last 24 hours, it's been a roller coaster for Chelsea fans, right? And again, I'm all for having different opinions and talking about having conversations about it. That's why I like creating content, talking about our club and talking with you guys specifically. But now we zoom out a little bit and we've got a bit more context around the Gittens deal falling through, which I'm very happy with. Again, the Maignan deal missing out, but then looking to offload Petrovic and being happy with Sanchez and Jorgensen going into next season. It's just very baffling to me, and I'd love to know your thoughts down below. I feel like it makes sense with the whole Club World Cup thing. One thing I forgot to mention, which I'll mention now, is Christopher Nkunku has made the Club World Cup squad, which I just thought was very interesting. Not enough to do a whole segment on, but you've got the likes of Sterling, Disasi, João Felix, obviously Paez, Petrovic, not in that Club World Cup squad, but we are taking Christopher Nkunku, who looks to be leaving this summer. So that's, again, it's just a very strange thing. Maybe it's because Maresca's like, I can't have bare bones going into this competition. We are going to need rotation. Palmer's played a lot of minutes. We need someone else who could play in the 10. Could have used someone like Paez, to be fair, and just tried him out, at least in the group stages. But I don't know. It just seems like Chelsea's priorities are all over the place right now. Nothing's working in fluidity. We've got two directors that seem to be arguing against each other all the time. I don't know how we managed to do business with two directors. It baffles me. No one else has two directors, but we do. And then we've got the Club World Cup, which they said they want to take seriously because of the financial gain that we could get from it. But yet, we're stripping away some of our best players. Yes, we're taking Andre Santos. He's fantastic. Obviously, Asugo, Sarr, Delap, all going in. Amazing. But then there's now this like air of mystery around the goalkeeping position because the developed keeper we wanted to come in this season and play, and every Chelsea fan was excited for, is no longer going to be part of that Club World Cup and is potentially off this summer, whether it's a loan or permanent. It just baffles me, and I would love to know your thoughts and opinions down below. One last thing to note is the official Club World Cup squad will be announced at 5 PM today, which is just after this video has been uploaded. But we can kind of get a rough idea of who's going to be included and excluded based on the people that have already been excluded. So it'll be very interesting to see who the official Club World Cup squad is. And that's all the latest Chelsea news. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down below in the comment section. I love having a conversation with you guys. And if you have made it all the way to the end of this video, firstly, you're a real one, and I mean it, you're a real one. But secondly, there'll be a thumbnail appears on the screen. So if you are a Chelsea fan who enjoys Chelsea content, make sure you click that thumbnail because you'll enjoy that video too.